Theme Park Obsession actually made this point, and this is about aging coasters and construction and all of that. Apparently, I think he believes that Matterhorn stays at Disneyland, a coaster that was incorporated as part of that amazing 1950s era rockwork in 1959, the first tubular steel coaster ever, but one that was done by Arrow back in the day. Well, that might actually be on the chopping block.
It's funny that's been mentioned because that has been a passing thought in my head frequently in the last year. Just hearing how it's rough, it's kind of gone downhill in the quality than what it used to be. And yeah, I've kind of had that weird feeling in my stomach that it may, if they can't retrack it, then we might be seeing a new attraction go there. Or if they can't rebuild, well, that'd be retracking, but anyway.
This is the very interesting thing about this discussion, right? Because people might say, well, all you have to do is retrack it. And it's like, no, that's not all you have to do. Because as we saw with Big Thunder Mountain Railroad attraction over there at Walt Disney World, well, they had a new envelope of protection test that they actually had to perform because they did retrack the entire coaster, right? And so it's like, okay, well, how does that work for the Matterhorn? It doesn't. You can't do an envelope test there with a retract Matterhorn because simply there are so many cross sections in which you have the coaster coming into contact with objects and things and even its own track that don't fall within those guidelines provided by modern building standards, that it just doesn't qualify. So what do you do in that instance? I think this conversation is so fascinating because the Matterhorn, right? This should be something that should be preserved forever. But like we were going over with Montezuma there, Arrow's no longer around. So where do you get parts for that coaster? That's one, right? And I mean, they hadn't produced anything like a Matterhorn ever, even after it was done. It's not like one of their portfolio coasters that they can just provide parts for. Even those were custom built at the time. So Arrow doesn't even really help you in that instance, even if it were still around. But I think SNS, I think, took over their manufacturing. Anyway, it's just, you're not going to get any help there. You have constant complaints from people having back pain and so forth from actually riding that coaster because it was built in 1959, where Bob Gurr taught himself trigonometry for the ride layout and so forth. So it feels like it, unfortunately, there. What do you do? Like, do you keep it operating? Because there's going to be a certain point where it's going to be so cost prohibitive to operate, and you're going to have so many complaints from people who either, well, can't ride it, or from people who have ridden it and, have those complaints forwarded to City Hall. What do you do? Like, at a certain point, you're at a crossroads there where you have to do something. Do you get rid of the Matterhorn entirely? Do you get rid of the mountain entirely? Do you make the coaster inside inoperable and just have the facade there? I don't really know what the answer is there. I know that they had this crossroad of what to do like 20 years ago. And the mindset was, okay, well, we can refurbish the Matterhorn from the inside out and keep it going. But there was also another option in which they just build a new Matterhorn. Maybe they go that route now. I'm not sure.
I've never ridden the Matterhorn. I've been a East Coast guy for most of my time. And it's one of those things where I don't get nostalgic for it. I know that Everest, if you want to think about theme park equivalents, Everest is kind of the equivalent to the Matterhorn out there on the Eastern Disney properties here. And I if it's one of those sacred cows that can never be touched, then I guess it can never be touched. So the only option is to just keep it there and hope for the best, or to shut it down entirely. And those are the ones that I think come up when they say Disneyland is not a museum. I feel like that's on the list. Of course, that's, fine to me and sacrilege to someone else, of course.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Because when people go to like Walt Disney World, for example, and they go with maybe a Florida local or somebody who has a attachment there to those parks, and you hear somebody who maybe doesn't have an attachment to those parks go and say, "Hey, this should be removed," and it's like, no, you can't remove that. That's that's so important. It's part of my childhood or whatever. It definitely hits different, right, with people who aren't maybe necessarily intimately familiar with these attractions. Like you were saying there, Jonas. But in terms of the Matterhorn, it is iconic. Come on, it's one of the Disney mountains that you can find on just about any t-shirt featuring Disney mountains out there. But I think theme park obsession, I think the idea that it might not be here for long, I think I don't know. I think there's something, I think there's something happening there that we may not be privy to. Go ahead, Erica.
I mean, it's a probability. I guess if they can figure out a way to retrack it, even obviously they have to go out. Aero doesn't exist anymore, so they're going to have to find a manufacturer that even be willing to take on that task. That's a big one, because if it's with it being iconic, the attraction, you replace it, you're really going to upset the locals. I've never been on it. I'd like to go on it, but I probably shouldn't go on it, especially with my back. But there again, it goes back to guest safety, which according to Disney, that is their number one key, right? Safety first. Mm-hmm. They don't really seem to be honoring that, but that's a different topic.
Well, this is a different discussion, right? I mean,
worst case, they would have to replace it if they cannot find anyone. If they've exhausted every resource out there to keep it, then I would probably see Disney replacing it, just because they're not going to keep an empty attraction there.
Most assuredly, they would maybe build something in its place. I don't really see them just taking an attraction like that just offline and not really having a solution for it. But will it come in the form of, let's say, another Matterhorn or something else? Probably IP themed. Ugh. We'll see.
Yeah.
I wish that I would say that they would put, there's obviously a Yeti inside the Matterhorn, but if Disney were marketing their own stuff, I would say yes, they would do something to revive this. But it's probably I'm trying to think what properties they would put in there. Do they have a Bigfoot? Abominable snowman anywhere else other than in Mount Everest?
Monsters Inc.
Expedition Everest. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, there you go. But
well, I know it would be just like Disney to do something cheesy like that.
Mm-hmm.
The big rumor for a while there, for a long time, was Frozen. That was a big one that kept coming back over and over again.
Yeah, there's no way that they would use the original or what they have now for the ride track and put Frozen in there. That would be. And first of all, they would want to quote unquote improve it, and second of all, they would not want the fan complaints of having what they view as one of their most popular IPs in there. Yeah,
right. I think that was kind of the analysis, right? It's like, okay, well, we can spend a bunch of money to put Frozen in here, but it doesn't really make sense if this is on kind of a lifespan. That's almost at its conclusion. But you can see like Marshmallow, right, being involved there and doing the hijinks. Oh, I hope they don't end up going that route, but in the Bob Iger era, it's like anything you do must include an IP. It just must. So I don't know if it's a way of getting a new Matterhorn, perhaps. You're just gonna have to take the bad with the good.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.